Hi, my name's Daryl Peterson, and I'm the manager of the Applications Engineering Department here at Micromeasurements. This afternoon, along with me is Paul Millard, one of our senior applications engineers, and Paul and I are going to guide you through the installation of our System 9000. The System 9000 is our fastest digital data acquisition system that can sample up to 50,000 readings per second. And Paul and I are going to try to take a few minutes and guide you through the basic setup of the System 9000. We're going to start by looking at a getting started guide that comes with the StrainSmart software. We'll also take a look at the maintenance utility that you have to install with the System 9000. And then we'll take a look at the StrainSmart installation as well. So the intent of this video is to kind of walk you through step by step how to get this system up and running on your computer.
So what I have on my laptop here is 3 key pieces of software. When you receive the software from us, there's going to typically be 2 CDs. One CD is a maintenance utility CD, and the other CD is StrainSmart. A lot of customers will immediately try to install StrainSmart and communicate to the scanners and get frustrated that it doesn't work. What we're here to try to emphasize today is that you really need the maintenance utility installed first, as it's called out in the Getting Started guide. So I've put those files readily available on my desktop for the purpose of this video, and I'd like to just quickly walk you through some of this. The guide itself just has a reminder of what the computer's capabilities need to be. And then it also goes through both the scanners and the physical connection, which does involve a gigabit router for either 1 or 3 scanners to communicate to your PC.
I think that's an excellent point. With the 9000, you can connect up to 3 scanners together to build like a 36-channel system. Each scanner has a fixed number of 12 channels plus 4 expansion slots. So I guess technically you could build, 3 times 16, 48 channels if you were to put them all together. But with this system, unlike some of our others, this one requires you to use a router that supports DHCP. So that dynamic finding an IP address, you've got to have a router that supports that, and you also have to be able to configure that router for LAN ports. So with we have a particular brand of router that we recommend. It's a TP-Link router, but you may find that you've got one that will work with it, but you've got to make sure it's configured for enough LAN ports to support not only the 9000 scanner, but also your computer as well.
It's a good point in that far and away, the majority of the folks that contacting us saying that they can't connect to the PC, it's because they're using a simple switch or a simple router that is not DHCP compliant, and there's just no chance. They don't even come close. So once we overcome that, we gain that understanding with folks, then the connectivity winds up being simple.
Yep.
So what I'll do next then is I'm going to bail out of this. Well, I'll go one more page because the next step is going to be software installation, and again emphasizing that the maintenance utility is the first thing you want to do to establish the connectivity to the scanner. So I have a folder in here that's referred to as the maintenance utility folder. And the only thing that's in there is the opportunity to install that maintenance utility with the PDF explaining how. But there's an executable right here that's going to work for me in terms of installing the maintenance utility and some other things that are going to be helpful for us to accomplish. The installation is typically pretty quick and painless. There's not a whole lot there, but again, it's critical. Once it's installed, one more terms accepted.
Just using, I guess,
all the defaults.
Defaults,
just letting the defaults go.
And that probably took maybe 20 seconds to install the maintenance utility.
So now what we're going to wind up doing is go into the maintenance utility that we just installed. And that's located right here.
And this maintenance utility allows you to be able to configure the scanner. Since it supports DHCP, there's really about the only thing you have to do is to go out and find it. This maintenance utility also allows you to update firmware and to calibrate the system as well if you've got one of the VCAL cards plugged into the scanner. Paul, I guess you want to go ahead and get it talking?
Yeah, let's see if we can find it, because right now it doesn't seem to have a device. This first button under setup, it says devices, and by default it's finding a serial number of some scanner, but it's not showing any connectivity to it. My green light button that I expected to say online is not there. So what I'm going to wind up doing is checking the manual. It's going to tell me to hit these 3 dots right here, which opens up another window. And even before I get to hit that button, it did a search and it found a scanner.
Yep.
And so now that I found that scanner, I'm going to say, okay, move it over here as the selected scanner and save it. And boom, I am online. I am connected with that scanner. So after I tell it to save.
Yep. And before you go, if you get to this point and you find that you're having trouble with the communication, this is the point when you need to go back and check all the things that you think are done or correct. And that could be as simple as, do you have the Ethernet cables plugged into the right location on the back of the scanner? Do you have the power turned on your router? Are you using the LAN ports on the router? Do you have your computer set up for DHCP? That's where you're going to go through and check those things and make sure that you dot all the I's, cross over all the T's in order to get this thing talking. Because really, quite frankly, with DHCP, it should be easier than what you find if you have to give it a static IP address. That's the intent.
Most of these smart routers are going to be configured for WAN. You need to get in there and change the ports to LAN. And we'd already done that prior to the start of this video. So we're communicating right now, and after I save it, technically I could close out my maintenance utility right now and go fire up StrainSmart, which is the ultimate objective. But there's a couple other things that we could potentially point out to you as well here. If I were to select that device, if I've got multiple scanners, I'd have some to choose from. But by selecting this particular device, it gives me a report that gives me a status on several things, including the temperature within the scanner and whether or not I have a voltage calibration card installed. And I do, a VCAL card. The VCAL card is an NIST traceable standard on resistance, and that VCAL card is something that I can do as a system calibration. It'll check the voltages, inject voltages in each of the channels and check the measured ones to make sure everything's appropriate, potentially adjust any gain amplifiers within it, and it'll give you a report back as to whether or not everything's copacetic.
Another important point that I want to make here is that the VCAL card, you don't have to have one for the scanner to operate. It'll operate just fine without it. But if you get to a point where you want to do that, maybe it's an annual calibration, maybe it's more often as you want it to be, you do have to have that VCAL card present. So one of the things, really, I'd call it an advancement that we've had in the last 10 or 15 years with these data acquisition systems is no longer do you have to take them all, pack them up, put them in a box, and ship them back to us to be calibrated. Now, the only thing that you really can't calibrate in the field is this VCAL card. So it's a very small card. You just pull it out, ship it to us. We'll calibrate it for you, ship it back, so you've got all your traceability. And again, you can continue to use that 9000 scanner without that VCAL card being installed. So really, we've eliminated downtime with the calibration.
And we do have customers that have more than one. So they send in the VCAL card for recertification and retain a second one to continue to use whenever they need it, whether it's every test or every 2 months, whatever they specify. It's not unusual to have 2 VCAL cards. So
and also one more point to add is that if you have 3 scanners, you could have 1 VCAL card that you use to calibrate each one of those 3 scanners.
And if you have other data acquisition systems for micromeasurements, you can use that same VCAL card in other systems, again, to perform a system calibration.
Yep.
So one of the things that gets reported back here is my firmware versions. If I find out that, maybe something's out of date, maybe I've gone to need to upgrade them, there's a tab here that walks you through that for each of the scanners. And then jumping over to what we were just talking about, probably should have gone there in the first place, an opportunity to perform a system calibration. So all it really wants is some kind of, initials for whoever's doing it, and then you can tell it to perform that system calibration. And it'll give you an update on the right-hand side of basically everything that it's doing, including when we are connected to the scanner. But what it's going to do is go through a range of voltages across all the channels, multiple ranges, multiple times. It's going to check to see that everything is working as it's expected. And if it doesn't find the answer that it is expecting, it will fail the test and it will report back to you. Since the 8-channel boards from since the 12 channels of the strain gauges are all contained in the scanner, it's going to be all contained on each scanner. And here's the resulting report with the appropriate documentation for dates and people and whatnot. And then the column that says status is the one that I want to make sure that I run through and show and demonstrate that everything has passed.
One other thing I'd like to point out is when you're running this VCAL card, I recommend that you disconnect your inputs. I have had some customers that have found, they went through this calibration and found that a channel, in particular the excitation, had failed, and it had nothing to do with the scanner. It was their input had a path to ground or a short to ground that caused that channel to not be able to be within spec. So this VCAL card provides the voltages. So when you get to this stage, it's a good idea to just disconnect your inputs, run the VCAL. Once it passes like ours has, then you can reconnect those inputs back into the scanner.
And we have the opportunity to both retrieve previous calibration reports that were performed and save the one that we just did in any different format. So you've got lots of convenient options to document that you do have traceability with the scanner. So again, the calibration, system calibration and the firmware updates, those are conveniently here in what we call the maintenance utility or the maintenance application. But the primary thing that you needed to do was to create this assignment, make sure that connectivity was there. And really, that's the fundamental,
that's it.
The rule, if you will. So once I've accomplished that, I should be able to then go into my StrainSmart software. And the current version as of the shooting of this video for the System 9000 is version 1.4.3. And I should be able to go in there and install the StrainSmart software. It's not too big of a file, but it takes just a moment to get it installed. So we'll go through that for you because the ultimate test here is to making sure that all of this maintenance utility operations work and establishing the communications is going to be proven out now by running the StrainSmart software itself. Again, a lot of folks will jump straight to the StrainSmart software and will have no chance at communicating with the scanner, and then unfortunately spend a lot of time trying to get that communication started, and it's never going to work.
I think another important part of this is that you need to be a local administrator in order to be able to install this software. So that may mean that your IT department has to give you temporary rights as a local admin, or you may have to get them to install it. But we are writing some files in certain locations that require the person doing the install to be a local administrator. So make sure that you've got that ironed out or worked out ahead of time. It'll save you a lot of time and aggravation later on if you're not.
Yep. I think the majority of the reasons why people fail on the install is going to be the smart router. And then the second most likely one is the local permissions that IT has to set. So a lot of folks wind up getting a PC that's going to be unique, isolated, standalone, independent from the network, purely for one of the data acquisition systems. And StrainSmart is now installed, so all I need to do is scroll on down to StrainSmart for the 9000 and get it going. And it's just going to take a second to establish all the files that it needs. First time firing it up, and it's making sure everything is there for its reference. Again, this is potentially, if you don't have local permissions, it'll fail at this point because it's creating files, wanting to find files in certain places, and depending on those permissions, it could crash. More often than not, it'll give you an error code. Please document what the error code is. That helps us when you call us to figure out what aspect of it failed and whether the issues on our side or whether you need to be getting your IT folks involved. So again, the proof in the pudding, down in the lower left-hand corner, it says I'm not connected to a scanner with an option to connect. And when I mash the connect button, it's going to go and do a handshake and see what kind of hardware is out there, any surprises, anything unexpected, loading information from the scanner, and then boom, green light, connected. Now I can go play. I can go create sensors, create assignments, create scan sessions, and start taking data.
Yeah, I think to maybe try to summarize what we've looked at. So we spent a few minutes with the getting started PDF file. That certainly can help guide you in this installation process. Then we installed the maintenance utility, and Paul went through that in detail to explain why it's there and the different aspects of it, and how to go about doing things like a calibration of the system. And then really an installation of StrainSmart. And if you follow that sequence, really it should take maybe 15 to 20 minutes, just like we've done here, to basically get this box up and running. And really with our data acquisition systems, that's one of the things that we try to do, is build a turnkey system, one where you can get the boxes in, you take these scanners out of the box and the power supply and the router and plug everything together. And within a relatively short period of time, you can be up and running and ready to start testing. We put a lot of time and emphasis on making it a system that's turnkey, not something where you have to be a software programmer to be able to configure it. Anything you want to add to that?
Nope. We should be all set. Hopefully we covered it well enough. If not, please feel free to send us an email or give us a call on Applications Engineering, and we'll try to help you out.
Yep. So if you'd like to find out more about the 9000 or StrainSmart software, or really any of our products, please feel free to take a look at our website at www.micro-measurements.com. Or as Paul said, pick up the phone and call us at 919-365-3800 and follow the prompts to Applications Engineering. And Paul or myself or one of the other applications engineers would be happy to help you out. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.